Extra quick spot.
Oh, yeah. All right.
I tell you what, a person who believes that this wasn't set up by our own government is an idiot.
Here it is, literary terms. Now, this is nothing that you haven't already been talked to about, okay? Literary types are the types of literary terms. Now, we got two basic types of literary terms. We have elements. And as far as I know, you had a literature book last year called The Elements of Literature. I think that's the one y'all, yes, okay. So you kind of already know what this is. Elements, and the second type, techniques. That's the second type, techniques. We need to write both of those down. So let's talk about the difference between the two. The difference between the two, as you're writing down. Literary elements are those analytical devices or tools that you will find in all works of literature. And we're talking about fiction here. All works of literature. The author is like a requirement for the author. Although authors have a lot of freedom to write the way they want to write, they also have a requirement, and the elements we can call their requirement. So they have to include these elements if they're writing fiction. You know what fiction is, story. The literary technique is a little different. If we take literary off and we only deal with this word technique, then we can think about martial artists, his technique, or MMA fighter, his technique, or whatever. Anybody has a football player, his technique. Everybody has different technique. That's what makes a person great or not great, win a game or lose a game, because of their technique. That makes a person get on a team or get put off a team because of their technique. So when it comes to literature, the author is not required to use all of the techniques. He can use some, he cannot use some, it's up to him. So this is how technique is different from element. You don't have to have it in what you're writing. So with that said, it's quite obvious that, or at least to me, that there are going to be a whole lot more techniques than there are going to be elements. And that is basically where the English class comes in. Every year you end up going over some new techniques. You already got these. You got these in second, third grade, the elements. It's just every year you learn some new techniques. Some new techniques. Okay, so guess what? For you, fortunately, you're in a class where this is already on video and the PowerPoint is online, but you got to get in the first section. This is online for you to sit there and gaze at for hours if you like. But we don't have time for you to gaze at it for hours today. All right. Although literary elements we'll find in most works of literature, the author can vary his usage of techniques. His varying of these uses of techniques creates his style. Examples of techniques: flashback, foreshadowing. I'm just saying something that I know you already heard before. Right? You're in flashback and foreshadowing, things like that. That's not a requirement for an author to use that in a story. Those are techniques. But it helps to create an author's style. There's some authors who love to tell a story using flashback. Sometimes it's confusing because they're doing a flashback and you're confused. You're thinking it's present when really it's past, and then later you find out it was past. And that's their style. That's how they make what they're saying interesting. It's not a requirement. It's not an element. It's a technique. But it creates that particular writer's style. And it helps for you to identify that author or connect with them or however you want to call it. Now, this is an Islamic school.
I'll talk about tomorrow.
Yeah, that's rolling the hard way. We don't want to roll quite that hard. We want to get one of them little minibuses.
What's up?
Tell you what, a person who believes that this wasn't set up by our own government is an idiot.
Everybody's gone out of their mind.
Welcome to Mr. Quick's class.
Welcome to Mr. Quick's class. Welcome to Mr. Quick's class. Welcome, Mr. Quick's class.
Oh, yeah. All right. All right. All right.